I woke up in a stranger's house with no memory, and discovered I'd been living a double life for months. I never thought something like this could happen to me. One moment, I was walking home from work, the next, I woke up in a room I didn't recognize, a stranger's house with no idea how I got there. The blank slate. The first thing I noticed was the ceiling, plain white, cracked in one corner. The second was the silence. No familiar sounds, no familiar smells. I tried to sit up, but my head was pounding, and my limbs felt heavy. I looked around and saw a small notebook on the bedside table. My name was written on the cover, but it wasn't the name I knew myself by. The first clue. The notebook was full of entries written in my handwriting, but the dates were recent, months I had no memory of. They described daily routines, meetings, even conversations with people I didn't recognize. I tried to piece it together, but nothing matched the person I thought I was. 2 lives. I soon discovered that I had 2 phones, one in the house, one in my backpack, which I also didn't recognize. Each phone had different contacts, different messages, and different photos. One phone's gallery was filled with selfies of a smiling, confident person, the other phone had pictures of a tired, anxious individual who looked terrified. It felt like I was living 2 lives, but how and why? The dark secret. The more I dug, the more disturbing it became. I found evidence of meetings with unknown people, strange codes and messages, and references to things I couldn't explain. One entry read, "They're watching. I have to stay hidden. Tomorrow, I'll disappear again." I began to fear that I was involved in something dangerous, but I didn't know what. The shattered identity. I reached out to some contacts from both phones. One group was friendly but confused, claiming I'd disappeared suddenly months ago. The other was distant and secretive, warning me to stop digging. I started to question everything. Who was I really? Was I the person in the photos, or was I someone else entirely? The twist. One night, I found a hidden compartment in the house with a set of IDs, 2 different names, 2 different birth dates. It was then I realized, I wasn't just living a double life by accident. Someone had erased my memories and forced me into this split existence. The escape. Determined to find the truth, I started recording everything, following clues, and trying to rebuild my shattered identity. I knew the people watching me wouldn't let me go easily, but I had to try. The final question. Who am I? And what did I do to deserve this? If you want, I can expand this into a longer multi-part story with more twists, characters, and reveals. The Void. I spent the first days in a haze, struggling to remember anything, my name, my past, even the simplest things like how to make coffee. Every face was unfamiliar, every place strange. The only thing I had was the notebook and the 2 phones, each a window into lives I barely understood. I kept flipping through the entries, searching for any clue. One entry mentioned a safe place and a person called M. Another talked about them watching, always watching. I had no idea who they were, but the fear was palpable. Faces in the fog. I called some of the contacts from the first phone. They sounded genuinely worried, describing me as gone for months. A woman named Sarah claimed to be a close friend, saying I had suddenly disappeared and left no trace. She sent me photos from last year, pictures of a smiling me at a park, a coffee shop, a birthday party. From the second phone, I got cold responses, mostly silence or cryptic warnings. "Stop looking, you don't know what you're doing, we're closer than you think." Pieces of the puzzle. Desperate, I tried to sync the 2 worlds. Who was I really? Why did the phones tell such different stories? I realized the first phone belonged to someone living a seemingly normal life, while the second was filled with paranoia and coded messages. One photo on the second phone showed me in a dark alley, face tense, hands shaking. The caption read, "They're following me again." The hidden room. One night, curiosity pushed me to explore the house more thoroughly. Behind a loose panel in the closet, I found a small room, a hidden sanctuary filled with maps, photos with faces crossed out, and a wall covered in strings connecting names and places. At the center was a photo of me, but with two faces merged into one. The words, Project Gemini, were scrawled above. The message. Inside the hidden room, I found a recording device. Hesitantly, I played it. A voice I barely recognized whispered. "If you're listening to this, it means you're waking up. You have to remember. They split us for a reason. Find the other half before it's too late." Confronting M. I reached out to M, the mysterious person mentioned in the notebook. After hours of calls and evasions, M agreed to meet in a secluded park at dusk. When I arrived, a middle-aged man greeted me quietly. He told me a chilling story, that I was part of a covert experiment designed to create two separate identities within one body, to serve as an undercover agent with plausible deniability. My normal life was a cover, while the other life gathered intelligence and operated in the shadows. The betrayal. The experiment went wrong. The split fractured my mind beyond repair, causing memory loss and confusion. Worse, the organization behind Project Gemini decided to erase me when the experiment failed. M warned me, "They're still watching. They don't want you to remember. But you have to fight." Pieces together. I started to dig deeper, accessing locked files and encrypted messages stored in the second phone. I found references to handler meetings, exfiltration plans, and a code phrase, Midnight Phoenix. It became clear that my two selves were in a constant battle for control, each unaware of the other's full existence. The chase. One evening, I was followed by a black SUV. I managed to lose them in the city's maze of streets, but the message was clear: I wasn't safe. I contacted Sarah from the first phone for help. She was terrified but agreed to hide me temporarily. In a desperate bid to regain control, I performed an experiment on myself, reviewing old audio recordings, meditating to trigger memories. Suddenly, a flood of images and feelings hit me: two lives, two personalities intertwined, one trapped inside the other. I realized I wasn't just two lives in parallel, I was two people sharing one body, each with secrets the other didn't know. The fight within. Now, every day is a struggle. I journal everything, talk to both sets of contacts, and try to keep the two halves from destroying each other. I'm still trying to uncover the full truth, but I know this much: the line between who I am and who I was created to be is razor thin. Awakening the other. Since discovering the truth about Project Gemini, my life became a battlefield between two halves of myself. Days when one identity was in control, nights when the other took over without warning. Sometimes I'd find strange notes I didn't remember writing, or clothes in the closet I didn't recognize. One morning, I woke up to a voice in my head, not mine, guiding me through a set of exercises, reminding me of a hidden training regimen I never knew I had. The Hidden Network. M had introduced me to a secret online network, a digital refuge for people like me, fractured souls used as pawns in covert games. There were others who'd undergone experiments, others who lost parts of themselves. Connecting with them gave me pieces of the puzzle. I learned the organization behind Project Gemini was called The Collective, a shadowy group manipulating identities worldwide. Double agents. Through encrypted chats, I met someone who called themselves Echo. They knew details only my other self could have. Together, we pieced together missions I had undertaken unknowingly: sabotage, surveillance, even assassination attempts. Echo warned me, the more I learned, the more dangerous it became. The Collective would stop at nothing to keep their secrets. The Safe House. M arranged a temporary safe house in a remote location. Here, I could rest and try to synchronize the two halves of my mind. With Echo's help, I started a rigorous program of meditation, memory triggers, and therapy, fighting to unify my fractured identity. Infiltrating the Collective. The deeper I dug, the more I realized the Collective had eyes everywhere. I needed proof, and for that, I had to infiltrate their ranks. Using skills I barely remembered, I hacked into their secure servers, uncovering files that implicated politicians, businessmen, and world leaders in their schemes. The ultimate choice. As I gathered evidence, my two selves clashed violently. I started losing time, waking up in places without knowing how I got there. Sometimes the other self made choices I wouldn't have. Then came the moment I dreaded. The collective offered me a choice: surrender and join them fully, or disappear forever. The final confrontation. With Echo and M by my side, I decided to fight. We planned a sting operation to expose the collective publicly. It was dangerous, with risks of death and mental collapse. In a heart-pounding sequence, I confronted the collective's leader, a man whose face was a blur in my memories but whose voice sent chills down my spine. Truth and liberation. The operation succeeded, and the collective was exposed worldwide. Yet, the victory was bittersweet. My mind was still fractured, and the battle within continued. But I was free. For the first time, both halves of me were aware, communicating, and trying to coexist. A new beginning. Now, I write this as a warning and a testament. I'm not fully healed, but I'm fighting. I'm not just one person, I'm many, fractured but resilient. If you're out there, struggling with your own shadows, know this: you're not alone. The fight for identity is hard, but it's worth it. Fragments of memory. Even after exposing the collective, my mind remained a war zone. Flashbacks haunted me, moments from both lives colliding in jarring, sometimes terrifying ways. I saw faces I barely recognized, heard voices whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. One night, I dreamed of a woman, kind eyes, familiar smile, but I had no idea who she was. The woman in the dream. I told Echo about the dream. She said it might be a part of me buried deep, or someone trying to reach me. She suggested we investigate further. Using clues from my memories, we traced the woman's face to a social worker named Lila, connected to a shelter for people affected by the collective's experiments. Meeting Lila. Meeting Lila was surreal. She seemed to know me better than I knew myself, speaking of events and emotions I had forgotten. She revealed she'd worked with many victims of identity experiments, helping them reclaim their lives. She also mentioned something chilling: the collective didn't just fracture minds, they implanted triggers, psychological bombs meant to control or destroy if the subject rebelled. The trigger. Shortly after meeting Lila, strange things began happening. I'd hear a sudden ringing in my ears, feel uncontrollable anger or sadness without cause. On one occasion, I blacked out for hours, waking in an unfamiliar place with bruises. Lila helped me realize these were triggers, programmed responses embedded deep within me, designed to keep me compliant. Breaking the chains. With Lila and Echo's help, I underwent experimental therapy, confronting these triggers head-on, learning to recognize and dismantle them. The process was painful and exhausting, but I felt myself getting stronger. A new enemy. Just when I thought I was gaining ground, I received a cryptic message: "You're not done yet. The real game begins now." It was from a new faction within the collective, a secret cabal operating even more ruthlessly. Allies and betrayals. I realized I couldn't trust anyone fully, even those I thought were allies. Echo's identity came into question: was she who she said she was? M's motives grew murky. A tense confrontation revealed some had been playing both sides, manipulating me for their own ends. The choice revisited. Faced with betrayal and danger, I was forced to choose again: fight alone, risking everything, or join one of the factions to survive. I chose to fight, but on my own terms. Reclaiming identity. I delved deeper into my fractured mind, embracing every part of myself: the fears, the strengths, the shadows. I learned to use my fractured nature as a weapon, turning confusion into clarity. The beginning of the end. With renewed purpose, I prepared to confront the cabal and end the collective's nightmare once and for all. preparing for war. With every step I took closer to dismantling the collective and its dark cabal, the stakes grew higher. My fractured mind was no longer a weakness but a weapon, an unpredictable asset in a game of shadows. Lila and Echo stood by my side, though trust between us was fragile. We devised a plan: infiltrate the cabal's stronghold, expose their secrets to the world, and finally break their control over victims like me. Into the lion's den. The cabal operated from a fortified complex deep in the mountains, a place where technology and human experimentation blended in sinister harmony. Our team breached the perimeter under cover of darkness. Every step echoed with danger: cameras, guards, and psychological traps awaited us. The heart of darkness. Inside, I faced the full horror of the collective's work: rooms filled with mind control devices, tanks of suspended test subjects, and walls lined with data on countless victims. There, I confronted the cabal's leader, a cold, calculating woman named Dr. Seraphine. She revealed the true purpose of Project Gemini: not just to fracture minds but to create perfect operatives who could control the fate of nations from the shadows. The final battle within. Dr. Seraphine tried to manipulate my fractured mind, exploiting every hidden fear and secret. She whispered lies, tried to pit my two selves against each other, promising freedom if I surrendered. But this time, I was ready. I embraced every part of myself, the light and the darkness, and fought back with everything I had. Breaking the chains. With a surge of willpower, I disabled the mind control systems, freed the captive victims, and exposed the cabal's atrocities to the world through hacked live feeds. The fallout was immediate. Governments launched investigations, arrests were made, and the Shadow Empire began to crumble. Aftermath. Though victorious, I was forever changed. The battle had left scars deeper than any physical wound. But for the first time in years, I felt whole, not despite my fractured mind, but because of it. Lila, Echo, and I vowed to help others like us reclaim their lives. The fight was far from over, but hope had been reborn. The new dawn. As I look forward, I know the shadows will always linger. But I've learned this: the human spirit is stronger than any manipulation, and identity is more than memories. It's the choices we make, the battles we fight, and the truth we hold on to. The calm after the storm. The world had shifted. The collective's empire lay in ruins, their darkest secrets broadcasted for all to see. But victory felt hollow, the cost had been immense. I sat alone in a quiet room, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined my life. For the first time, I wasn't running from shadows. I was facing myself. Reconciliation. Echo visited often, though her identity remained a mystery. Lila continued her work with victims, guiding me through the labyrinth of recovery. Together, they helped me reconcile my fractured selves. We built bridges between the shadows within me, turning dissonance into harmony. Healing wounds. Therapy sessions, meditation, and raw honesty became my new battleground. Memories once fragmented began to stitch together, revealing a whole, imperfect, scarred, but undeniably mine. I forgave myself for the things I couldn't control, for the dark paths my other self had walked. New purpose. With clarity came purpose. I founded a support network for survivors of psychological manipulation and identity trauma. Sharing my story wasn't just catharsis, it was a lifeline for others lost in the shadows. The last message. One evening, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was a single note. You are free. Remember who you are. Along with it, a photo, me, smiling genuinely, standing in sunlight, whole at last. Moving forward. I still have moments of doubt, flashes of the past's darkness. But I've learned that identity isn't fixed, it's fluid, resilient, and born anew every day. My story isn't just about survival, it's about redemption, rebirth, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. The light within. If you're reading this, lost or broken, know this: your past doesn't define you. You have the power to reclaim your mind, your soul, your life. The journey is hard, but the light within you is stronger than any shadow. Thank you for following my story. This is my truth, laid bare. And now, it's time to live it fully.